I'll call the meeting order. We'll start with the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, item number 2, new business. Item C, budget amendment number 10 for legal fees. So we talked a little bit about this last week during the regular meeting. And given that we haven't...
Roll call, please.
Oh, sorry. I figure we all knew who's here. Go ahead and call the roll, please.
Yep, Chris Wold.
Here.
Chris Iden.
Here.
Ken Charneski.
Here.
Alex Hedrick.
Here.
Chris Iden.
Here.
Oh, sorry. Kelly Coyle.
Yeah.
And Aaron Michigan.
Here.
All right, sorry about that, guys. I'm just jumping ahead. All right, yeah, so now we're on to new business, the budget amendment number 10. So we talked a little bit about this last week, and I figured since we were having a meeting tonight, special meeting to talk about the agenda, or sorry, not the agenda, the budget, we would go ahead and throw on an amendment for the legal fee since we're already behind on for the month of October.
Do you know what's owed to date? Did we get
The new bill came in,
Yeah, so there's like 700 something from Von Briesen that just showed up. Then there was it $2,000?
just shy of $2,000, I believe. I came in for Dempsey.
Yeah. So about $3,000 is what for October. Yeah, if you extrapolate that out to the rest of the year, $10,000 is not that bad.
And there's no other pending invoices out there, Chris?
Not that we know
No, but it's hard to say what's going to get filed after the election. There might be a lot of wet complaints get filed afterwards. So I don't know. We can sit here and discuss if we should do the 10 or not do the 10, but we owe at least 3 right now.
When there's like an election complaint, do you have to get the lawyer involved for that?
Because they have to file a response.
So when there's like that ballot mix-up with some people looking at the Mosney referendum and some people got the wrong ballot in that ward, we had to get Dempsey involved in that?
No, because nobody's filed a claim from that.
Okay. Gotcha.
They did file a claim, but the person that filed it was not a resident, so WEC ignored it.
Gotcha.
So if they get somebody that is a resident that was impacted by that, then they could file the complaint.
I understand.
Right now, there hasn't been one. But.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Make a motion to approve budget amendment number 10 in the amount of $10,000 from undesignated funds.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, second by Alex to approve the budget amendment as presented. Any further discussion?
Yeah, do we have any undesignated funds?
Well, yes.
I understood that we were in a negative situation.
But you also have to remember you have wages and things that haven't been used in the past. You have people that are underspending. We're not doing any carryovers into next year, so anything that's not spent this year will flow back into that undesignated.
Okay, so technically, shouldn't we be taking it from a certain line item that we know we're not gonna use or something like that? I mean,
We had conversations about this in the past, and not taking it from the wages was kind of the way that we've been doing this the whole time. So legal's the only thing that's been coming out of undesignated. And again, you'll end up getting money put back in there from all different departments, so.
So you're taking it from undesignated
Because
to
everything
be
that,
replaced at some future date, but which is not there now.
well, we haven't had an administrator this month, so technically that's there.
Okay, but that's designated.
Correct. So it won't become undesignated until the end of the year when it rolls back into that pot.
Yeah, so what you're saying is because of all the extra wages, that's gonna get dumped into the undesignated fund.
Correct.
That's-
Because it won't be,
It's like-
yep,
So if the 10 grand comes out undesignated, and then there's 50 grand that goes in, the net positive is 40.
Correct.
What you're saying. And there hasn't been an administrative wage since July.
Forever.
So it's been 4 months of whatever that is.
Well, I'm not saying the money's not there somewhere.
Right.
It's just typically you would take it from a line item where you know it is and it's not gonna be used.
And legal's the only one that we've been pulling from undesignated this year. Every other budget amendment has been pulled from a specific spot, stating that we don't have control over legal, so it's just been coming out of undesignated.
Right, and the reason we didn't, if I'm remembering this correctly, the reason we didn't pull it from wage lines and so on was because it actually screws up how it looks on the next year's budget by making it look artificially reduced.
Correct.
So therefore, undesignated is what makes the most sense to take from.
Correct.
Yep. Any other comments? Go ahead and call the roll, please.
Kelly Coyle.
Yes.
Alex Bedwick.
Yes.
Aaron Mishka.
Yes.
Chris Wolf.
Yes.
Chris Iden.
Yes.
Ken Cherneski.
No,
Motion carried 5-1. All right, moving on to item 3, old business, 2025 budget review. Continue. So should we be using the copy in the packet, or do we need to be using the one that you sent?
You could use the one that I emailed out earlier. The only difference in between the one that's in the packet and the one that was emailed is because on Friday or over the weekend, don't ask me, I'd have to go back and double check, we finally got the information about health insurance and dental insurance, so
Yeah, I think
that was just updated on the ones that were emailed out. So everything else stayed the same.
Because I think that was Monday. With the insurance stuff.
Not by the time I got it.
Well, by the time I saw it, it was Monday.
You're talking about for the police department?
For everything.
Okay.
So, the entire staff, their health insurance was just the increase for them. So,
Do we know, like, a sum, because I was like looking at it, I see the revenues are equaling expenses in this version. I guess what major changes, or the one that you emailed out, it looked like. Now, I'm just trying to get understanding what this is saying, because like, for example, in the past, I think we didn't get into it that much, like capital equipment and stuff actually comes out of the general fund, but it's a different fund,
yes,
account number.
it comes out of the levy. So, your capital, your debt, service, those type of things come out of the levy.
That's what I'm wondering is how did we end up with it exactly equaling? 'Cause like I had to.
Because it's, so this is probably where, I don't know that you guys quite understand how this budget kind of goes together, is when we come up with the general tax dollars, to get that dollar amount, to get that 2.1 that was sent out, it is your expenses minus your revenues as per the comments, and it's an autofill. It's a formula for that thing. So once I get that number, I had Ellers run the thing, and that is where I got the percentage from. I know in the packet it says 3.4 because that's the way that it was, but after the updates with the insurance and that, it would be 4.8, which, just so you guys understand, if a house property of $200,000, the 22 tax is paid in 23, the dollar amount was $768.58. Using that 2.1 that I had emailed out, it would be $771.17. So we were talking $2.59 more than what it was 2 years ago.
Well, yeah, that's the total levy, right? I mean,
Correct.
it's, I mean, I'm assuming that difference was from
That's,
that fund.
well, that's based on the capital reduction, it's based on what we need for debt service, it's based on the combination of everything.
Okay, yeah, but I was meaning in the fund, yeah, I didn't wanna get too far ahead of ourselves, cause you know, like you said, that's speaking about all the funds together, so it's, I guess that's what I was getting at, is Fund 100 specifically, cause that's where the,
It's you mean the 1.6 versus the 2.1?
well, okay, I guess I'll try to clarify. Our total expenditures in this spreadsheet that was sent out, say it was $5,839,828.38. And in the revenue line item, you have $5,839,828.38.
Correct. It is because that general property tax line
Okay,
is a formula. So whatever amount is needed to make it a balanced budget goes into that line. That's the way it's always been.
okay.
Now, well, go ahead, Alex, are you done,
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I'm just trying to understand, cause I guess when you say whatever
So
used to go in, that,
based on the expenses, so you put in all the revenues that you know, you put in all the expenses that we know, the expenses that we've decided on.
mhm,
Whatever the difference is, gets plugged into that property tax.
or? Okay, I had sent you a couple emails today asking about that. So you're saying we come up with our expenses and the general property taxes will raise to whatever it is we need to meet our expenses?
Correct, but it has to be done within the allowance of what you can do based on the debt that you have. These are all things that your treasurer has known for years. This is behind the scenes stuff that they look at, they make sure that it's following the rules and regulations that are required.
Well, we have a debt levy limit, and that's what I was asking you about today.
And that is.
Doesn't that come from the state?
No. So that's what I tried to explain in the email is based on this budget spreadsheet that we complete, and then once you guys adopt the budget, then a worksheet is filled out and the state is informed on what we need. And based on where our debt ratio is and everything else, they approve it after.
So there's no limit to what we can spend?
There's a
The
limit
state
based
will
on the
approve
debt
our
that we
taxes.
have.
There's a cap.
There's a cap based on the debt.
What is the cap?
Based on
The
our
levy
debt.
limit, that's what I'm looking for.
It's based on our debt. It changes every year.
Well, I know it changes every year. Are you sure you're not talking about the levy limit for debt?
No.
Because that's unlimited, basically.
No, because of the way the worksheet is you have a dollar amount, you subtract out last year's levy, and you add in this year's levy. That's the way it's always been. The worksheet still works the same as it has 10, 20 years ago.
For clarity's sake, do you have a blank copy of that worksheet on your laptop?
No,
Okay.
sorry.
I was gonna say, if you could bring it up, it would make it much clearer for those that are questioning how.
well,
Yeah, no, I don't have one, but yes.
well, no, I think we're a little bit ahead of ourselves is all I'm saying with all that. I get how all of them get together into the levy worksheet. I know that's what we're trying to settle on at the end of the meeting, right? And that's basically what we're finalizing, but what I'm saying is, what I had down when I tracked it through spreadsheet after our discussion on October 29th, right, the initial proposed budget that was sent out had expenditures of $6,471,304.58. Then we made a bunch of adjustments, one $20,000 adjustment to revenue and about $827,000
Yep, and
reduction in
you're gonna
expenditure.
notice, and I'm sure this is part of the reason that Chief is here, is we went back through, we sat side by side, we tried everything we could to get the, PD budget as low as we could. But we
Okay.
cannot identically match the 24, and that's what you guys had asked us to do. We
Okay.
could not do that. You can see that on the new sheets.
Okay, so
Can't.
the health insurance went up a bunch.
The health insurance went up, we had more people that took it. There's just certain things that we cut everything we possibly could out of PD, but we couldn't get it to be identical to the 24 budget. Because of raises and the wages, health insurance, needing equipment to keep our officers safe.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I get all that, I just wanna, that's why I was
So
gonna take a
that's-
step back, cause
Yeah,
basically
so
where
there's,
we resulted after cuts, is our expenditures were $5,644,093.68. Then in this update here, I'm not saying any of it's wrong, I just wanna get
No,
everyone on the
but
same
that's-
page, so we're not
yeah, so there's,
talking past each other on the numbers. It's $5,839,828 for expenditures. And that's the only big change we made besides what we discussed?
correct.
Okay,
Okay, so getting back to this, general property taxes. Is, okay, it's about 400,000 higher than last year. Is that 400,000 directed towards the new debt? I mean, we got the fire truck, 2 payments to levy for.
Correct.
We've got debt for, those bonds.
Yep.
That comes to 400,000?
Well, there's that, or if there's increases in wages and different things. There's so much that goes into it, I don't think I could explain it to you unless you actually sat down next to me and went side by side through each and every piece and understanding the accounting side of this. But what there is with the new debt that we took, with making up for last year's fire truck payment, this is, and with the increases in wages and health insurance, this is the dollar amount that we need. And it is acceptable based on the debt that the village has to have the levy at this.
Okay, well, everything I've ever heard in the past 6 or 8 years or whatever was, if we don't have growth in the construction in the village, you don't have an increase in your levy, but you do have an increase in your debt levy if you increase your debt. So unless this 400,000 reflects the, the fire truck and the new debt,
I sat down after a meeting, we went through and I sat with elders and walked through each and every piece, went through everything, made sure that I had everything correct, and we have went over it several times. I even talked with elders again this morning before sending out the information for your guys' updated percentages on the tax impact. So there is nothing that I am doing incorrectly. It has been reviewed by our finance advisor. They're on the same page. They completely agree. We've walked through the worksheet, we've done everything. So I am looking for,
So we can raise our property taxes
to a certain
to.
extent.
Okay,
And
What
there's a
extent?
there's a limit. Well, it depends on what we need it for, it depends on what's going on. I would have to go back and talk with Ellers 100% to find out exactly what our top limit is. I believe we were roughly talking 800,000 to 900,000 that I could increase the levy based on the subtraction and the addition and the base. So I mean, I could go up a little bit more,
for operating costs.
correct?
So Lisa, Sarah found the form, I emailed it to you. I emailed it to everybody else.
Oh, did you?
so yeah, just before we get too far ahead of ourselves on the debt levy, because it's it's related, it's important for final adjustment, but I'm still not, I guess, getting it. So I'm just gonna go through the timeline now. So the spreadsheet that was sent out just before our last meeting, where we made all the budget cuts, on the expenditures, right? After we made all the adjustments, our revenue was $5,782,089.89. And our expenses were $5,644,000. But now the expenditures are $5,839,828. Okay, so if all that's
So I had
the
to
change in
increase,
health
so
insurance.
you had to increase, yeah, you had to increase the revenue by that extra 30-some thousand because of the health insurance.
The expenditures in it.
I had to increase the expenditures, so I have to increase the revenues.
Remember we took the 20 grand of revenue out there from building permits?
Yeah, I included that. I'm saying that's where we settled on our final numbers after last
Yep.
meeting, at the point in time.
Correct, but that additional, what I'm saying is in that revenue, because that top line, that general property tax, is a formula driven. So when we increase the expenditures by the 30,000, I increase the revenue by the 30,000. Because we're going to increase our taxes by that 30,000,
And we can do that.
yes. That is what Ken keeps on going back and forth on.
How?
And that is where
I thought we
Ellers,
could only do
it
that
is,
with
it is
that.
based upon, and this is where I keep telling you guys, this is where it's something that I don't think that you guys understand. There's a formula and there is different protocols that you can do, and that is why I have it. And I talked with Ellers and said, okay, based on the debt that we took out this year, so based on the debt that you took in '24, based on everything that we have, what is the max? We came up, it was, I don't know, 800,000-900,000, something like that. That would be the absolute max that we could do. We're not near that,
But we have the ability to go up
We
that high.
could. and if you guys wanna max it, I can easily call Ellers back and say, what is my absolute max? And we can pop that into the fund balance and be done.
But we still need to,
But
it's
that's,
still gotta be debt though. It still has to be a
Well,
debt.
correct, it's,
Debt.
yeah,
okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
So if you wanna raise it by 800 grand, we're gonna have to borrow some money to do that.
Right, so, okay, so right now, just to clarify, in this proposal, the total revenue went up 57,738 compared to where we were at the end of last meeting.
no. Cause the last one that we had was
I mean, I get that there's a piece about adding
the revised
that to do that, but it seems like.
was
under this-
5802, and you're 5839, so you're up by 37,000,
5802,
right? That's what we had.
because I'm going off the spreadsheet that was sent out. Not the one in the packet, because we had,
Right, so let me go,
because the expenditure line item was
and you
6,471,
want another 20,
and we cut $827,210.90.
Yep. so you are correct, it was the 50, sorry. I see where you're at.
Okay, no, I'm just trying to get to the
No,
bottom of it.
you're fine.
So the revenue, and then the expenditures in this proposal went up from 5,644,093.68 after the cuts
Yeah, that I wouldn't be able to tell you, but
to 5,839,828.38.
correct, that's what they got increased.
So it's showing an expenditure increase of 195,734.
So we had, just shy of probably 40,000 in health insurance, and then PD, we could not get it to, like I said, the even balance. So you do have that increase as well.
So to achieve a balanced budget, then, when you're speaking about increasing taxes, increasing the levy, because we're talking about financing the debt, you're saying we're needing to fill the budget with this one as it's written to make it balanced with additional 57,738.49 of levy, which is debt levy though.
Is that right?
Yes and no.
How is it now?
Well, see, when you're talking about the debt levy, the amount that we take out on our debt, the amount that we have in the debt, there is the dollar amounts that are taken for that year that we can increase the levy by. When we increase the levy, it is the overall levy. It is not just for Fund 350, it is not just for the debt fund. So it's, when you're thinking about it, that's why you always have to think about everything as a whole. Yes, each fund has its own things, each fund has its own responsibilities, but overall, it's the overall debt. So we take in, when I'm looking at the levy, I take the capital, I take the debt, I take the general, everything gets added together.
Mhm.
And that is where you keep getting that. So when you're talking about debt levy, the amount that we need to spend out, or the amount that we're going to spend as a village out, that is the amount that I can increase the levy by.
Right,
For
but
debt.
when they talk about levy limits, like in terms of not needing to use debt for it, like the amount we can bring on the net new growth piece, that's
That's
general levy.
completely different, that's a different set of rules, that's based on another number, but that's not based on this worksheet that I'm talking about when we're talking about this.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know we can increase that total levy, but
So I'd like an example, Lisa. So if we want to do that $16,000 dollars project, that was like a 5-year plan or 10-year plan?
Yeah, the 5-year, 10-year
Yeah.
projection.
If we chose to put that in the budget, would we need to take a separate loan for that? Or would that just be like the adjustment that you're talking about?
We would end up increasing the levy by that 16,000.
No separate loan needed, just plug it in?
Nope. You would just increase the levy by 16,000 because the cap that I can increase is based on the amount of debt the village already has that they need to pay this year.
right now.
What if it's an asset like a police vehicle? What if-
Same thing.
Same thing. So we could put in the police vehicle.
The
put
police
in this-
vehicles,
Put in that other $16,000 plan, and we wouldn't have to take any separate individual loans for that stuff.
correct. We would just increase the amount, and now next year, it'll be a different dollar amount based on what is due at that time. So every year, that max that you can levy up to changes, based on the amount of debt that you have as a village and what's remaining.
So does that example that Aaron talked about, would that be because these are new items to the budget for 25, or is that not making any
It
difference?
doesn't make a difference.
No, we
So-
go increase that to a certain level, like say it's 100,000, boom, we're done.
Correct.
We can't do that anymore.
You can only go up to the amount of debt that the village has. So we added new debt this year.
Okay.
So that
So it was
allowed us
higher.
to increase our taxes a little bit more, that we could cover those.
yeah, to service that debt.
To service that debt, and there's some other things that you could increase by, but again, there's still rules that you have to follow, and whatever we increase this year, next year gets subtracted out, and then you have to add back in. So it's a very strategic thing based on what is needed. That's why I had asked for the Ellers 5 to 10 year plan, because they would lay it out and tell you when you should take more debt as a village, when you shouldn't, when your debt's gonna drop off, when you should start looking to take out another few $2 million so that you're always level, so your taxes don't dip way down, and then all of a sudden you guys are trying to figure out how to cover operating costs.
Well, that's
That other
not exactly
project for
rocket
16,000,
science,
that was,
you know. I don't
that
think
was
we need
very
ever
attractive to me, and I
do
really
that.
want to do that. So I think we should maybe reconsider that, Chris, another 5 to 10 year plan.
Okay,
What did you just say? I'm trying to get.
I know, I was hearing two different, what did you,
well, okay. Back to this first line of $2 million. It's $400,000 increase. How much of that 400,000 is for debt service, and how much is not?
What line are you on, Ken?
Fund 100, the
your
very first line,
your
the
2.1 is just for the
general
general.
property taxes.
Oh, okay.
That is just for the general. There is the total levy, all said and done, adding everything together, is 2.6. The 2.1 that you keep on going back and forth on is just for the general.
Okay, so that's not, you just said that there's a separate levy for debt.
So the
Where-
debt-
Where is that on these sheets?
That would be your Fund 350.
Yeah, it's a different,
It's a different fund.
fund.
Okay, well, that's what I wanna find out.
So your Fund 350 states that it will be the $200,000.
Well, that's only a $7,000 increase over last year,
Mhm.
but we've got,
Again, I don't know how,
I mean, if we're levying a lot of money for debt service, it should show up.
we're
right
not
here.
levying it for debt service. We can increase the overall taxes because of the amount of debt the village has. The amount of debt the village has puts the cap on how much the village can increase taxes.
For other purposes besides that.
Correct.
What is the difference?
I've never heard.
It, well, I'm trying to
We've
explain it the
we've
best
always
way that I
been-
can in
We've
like
always been limited.
not accounting terms.
We've always been limited by our
You are,
increment growth. You're
You
saying
are
this is
limited-
something new that we never knew about, and that other municipalities do this.
yes. This is how everybody, it's to keep your taxes a lot more level. So last year, when you guys did the dip and we did the decrease in taxes, if you would have had a 5 to 10 year projection when you refinanced and you did that dip, you would have taken out debt to keep your taxes going straight. So all I'm doing is I'm bringing the taxes this year back to where they were 2 years ago. That's it. With a $2.59 increase. But it's literally just going back to where your taxes were 2 years ago.
So an
Because we
increase
took
of
out debt.
$400,000 is only costing $2 per,
$2.59 more than what it was 2
On
years
a
ago, based on a
$200,000
$200,000 house. That's the way it is when you refinance and you go, that's why it is so important for you guys to have a 5 to 10 year projection out, so you know when when your debt's gonna fall off and when you should be taking out more debt, so you don't see these roller coasters.
well, we already know that. Alex has been talking about that, you know, for months. I mean, we know about when your debt's gonna drop off. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this 400,000 at $2 per house, you know, a $200,000 house. We'd have to have 200,000 houses that you
No,
raise
because,
$2 a piece
so the
to get
difference,
this amount.
the big thing is back in 2022, you guys had, if you look at Fund 350, you guys ended up having your property taxes, about 700,000 of that went into your debt fund service. It's just the way that things are kind of allocated. So like last year, we had a lot in capital, so we took 628,000 into capital to keep the general fund kind of more level. I have a bunch of different areas, so I'm taking 3, 4, 5 different areas, and it's an overall piece. And when you're only looking at this, you're not seeing everything.
Okay, so,
That's why-
hang on. So you just said a few minutes ago, this $2 million of general property taxes that is available for us to spend aside from any debt. You said
Correct.
about 600,000 is coming in somewhere as a debt levy to pay the debt, which
It's,
isn't enough.
so the thing is, and the debt levy that you keep referring, what I'm trying to say is, when I'm calculating out the levy, the overall levy, we can only increase up to an amount of debt the village has for that year.
Is that total debt or just the new debt?
It's total.
Okay.
So overall, everything that's gonna be, that is my max.
Right?
So what I have overall, now however it's divvied, that changes year to year. And I can, if we agree on this, once I get the final number for the budget and you guys agree on the budget, I can send you guys out the whole intake, the whole sheet showing you 22 to 23, 23 to 24, 24 to 25 from Elders. And it'll kind of maybe break it down. I don't know if it'll help answer anything or not. But that's where the max comes in, but how you allocate it out changes from year to year. In 22, you needed 700,000 for debt services. This year, I need 200,000. So it's based on what debt I have to cover. And it's just based on the different payments. There's a lot of different rules and regulations that pull into each year, and that's why I sat down and I verified with Ellers to make sure that we were exactly within our reach and what we needed to do. And Brian and I have had several conversations on several different occasions to make sure that the village is where they need to be. And when I talked to him about this, he says, yep, he thinks this is in line, and it matches so close to what it was 2 years ago that it's, but you guys have to approve it. If you want to change anything, we can change anything, but if you guys want me to start working on putting a presentation together, I need to know before the end of tonight.
I guess I'm still wondering though, I get how a lot of them are playing with each other, but why in this budget, or this update, I should say, why the expenditures are up 195,000 compared to where we were on the 29th? It's still not seeing where.
Well, I've got some line items to go through as well, that I see discrepancies or that need
Okay,
some kind of adjustment.
so what line items do you have?
Well, okay, let's start with the first page. There's a few of them there. The wood sales and miscellaneous revenue, you've got them at 11,500 and 11,000. That's, to me, that's optimistic. I think we're too high on that based on 2024. And the one more line below the 7,500, culvert and roadway work sale, if we only did $1,350 estimated in 2024, I think that 7,500 is also overly optimistic, at least by about 4,000.
Let's take them one at a time.
Okay, well, there's three of them there that I think altogether is about $11,000 overly optimistic.
Again, on those, what I ended up doing is I took whatever the adopted budget was in 24, and that's kind of what I ran with, unless I could see that it was gonna be higher.
Well, in this case, they were lower, you know, and
I didn't
I
take
get
the-
caught short.
Yeah, well, and I don't know if there's other things that are coming or not. I took the amount, when I put this together, it was based on what you guys had agreed upon in the 24 budget.
Okay, well, and another.
So, wood sales, let's finish wood sales. Are we gonna change wood sales?
Okay, no, keep going. Well, I figured if we cut it back by 4 to 7,500, that would be closer to what we ended up with in 24.
Comments?
I mean, guess, just to clarify, so are we going off these revenues going forward here? Because I still don't really understand what changed.
He
Except the
just
health
doesn't
insurance.
like the budget dollar amounts that I have in the revenue, so he wants to decrease the revenue amounts.
Because they don't reflect the actual, from 2024, and,
Well, I get.
and if they're off a little bit, okay, but if they're off by that much, I think we may end up getting caught short.
I mean, I get going through it, but I think I still am having, you know, how do I put it? I just think the change in the expenditure after our discussion on the 29th are big enough, I just,
The only way I'd be
I'm not
able to
thinking
know is
about
if I
it.
went side by side, and my guess is it's gonna be in between wages and health
So
insurance.
Lisa, how much did the insurance quote?
It was almost 40,000,
How much, what did the PD want?
75.
right?
PD, the
Oh,
police department?
Oh, yeah, I saw that too. Right.
Still 80 short.
Why did that go?
They said they couldn't match the number. Maybe as close as they could.
In
You
order,
have an increase in wages, you have an increase in health insurance, you're not gonna be able to tie out perfectly.
Well, okay, how did
The
2024
health-
come
And
out
you
so
have-
well?
Well, it depends on how many people took health insurance that year.
Well,
We have,
health
we have more,
insurance
we have
is
more people
separate.
that wanna take health insurance this year, what are we supposed to tell them? No, you can't because we wanna cut the budget? I can't do that.
Well, no, I'm not trying to do that, but, so we had 40K in health insurance in the PD though, that was wages and health insurance, so is the health.
That's everything, for the PD, but I'd have to finish going through. The only other thing that I can think of is if I was looking through something on the wages and, you know, looked at something and saw that something was incorrect and I updated it. So the wages would have been the only thing that I could think of that would have changed. I know this morning I was looking and there was an allocation that was off, so before I sent it out.
I just changed, insurance changed, and then the alignment to the PD 24 number wasn't changed.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, okay, so, yeah, I know, yeah, with the PD, we were, you know, that's where we had finished the discussion at, but the reason why that I don't wanna have to go through every line item again, that
Well, that's why we're trying to
everything
figure it
again.
out.
So I'm trying to get to the big spot, or the big pieces, so I'm understanding where.
I'd have to go through each and every piece again, comparing.
Well, it sounds like the number is 195.
Well, that's what I got between them, but, I mean, this would, I mean,
Those
looking
are
at
the three things that
PD.
changed.
Okay, so our health insurance and wages and, which I'm assuming also flow through to the PD, right? And that's the big driver of the
Yep.
insurance change and the wages, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll take a look here. So I just wanna make sure we're not talking past each other. I mean, I think it's just best to get this sorted out before we go further. Cause, okay, so now I've seen the line item, PD's budget is $1,619,083.60. Where we were last time was $1,543,853. So here, I'll enter that in to get a dollar amount. But like all of that should be all the wage changes and health
Well,
insurance should be in the
that's like for
PD.
PD, that doesn't include anybody else's wage changes or
Okay.
anybody else's insurance.
Okay. So this is everybody's wage hikes and health insurance.
Yeah, so it's all wages, all insurance, and then the PD adjustment.
Okay.
So how much is the PD adjustment? That's like,
Pull it right
Looks like 57,000.
600.
now. not trying to be opposite, so yeah, PD was about 76,000.
So 76 for that.
It's
You said
75.
how much the other wages were 40,
Roughly.
and the other insurance was 30.
So these
That's
other
175.
wages were not.
Yeah,
So we're not gonna get down to like $1,000, you guys. I mean, if you guys are looking for $1,000, we're not getting.
Well, no, I'm not, I'm just
Well,
trying to understand why I was just trying to understand on that side, because we also
Well,
have the
I think
revenue.
we answered it, didn't we?
Yeah, well, okay, so we're saying this is our new numbers to go through, but, you know, the revenues still are up 57,000, so then most of that, I'm understanding, is just increase in levy, in total levy beyond what would be coming in through the total levy through net new growth. So that's just straight, I guess, mill rate hike, whether it's a combination of being allowed to levy more, beyond that, because of the added debt we have and debt service, correct?
Correct. So I mean, I can go through, if you guys want a cap of how much I can increase. I
And
mean,
we're not,
I can find out what that is, but
and we're not taking anything from undesignated,
no,
and we don't have any carryover,
no carryover.
okay?
Took all the carryover out.
You thought it was between 800,000,
I think so.
That we can increase, but I think that's just a one-year thing, right? So if we.
Correct. So if you increase it, the 8.9 this year, you subtract it out next year, and now you got a problem because you don't have as much next year.
So
why
if
it's
we
very
increase
strategic.
57 this year, we'll have to take 57 out next year.
Well, decrease, but you'll still have a thing, that's why I still really think that
Well, maybe
Eller's
the offsets somehow.
5 to 10 year projection will be huge. So maybe in a few years, you might have to take out debt for your capital, for your PD cars and other capital
but we're not
equipment.
there yet.
See, that's the one thing is I agree both with Lisa and with Aaron on this, is if there's one thing I feel like we should put back in the budget, it is that 5 to 10 year Ellers forecasting. It just, I just feel like we'd be making mistakes, because then every year we're gonna keep chasing our tail trying to find that target, and we're gonna start seeing those fluctuations. It starts off small, and then each time you make a correction, it's gonna get bigger and bigger. And it just, eventually, you're gonna find yourselves in a hole where you can't make it up. Where taking part in that, I think, would be wise to.
And Ellers already did, the evaluation for all the TIDs, and they've done it for sewer and water already. So
Yeah.
general's the only thing left, and they'll have the entire village.
I mean, I will admit, yeah.
Well, before I agree to that, I want to see what they've done for what they've done already.
Well, they've been
What's their
instrumental,
product?
they've been instrumental on the sewer and water utility, I'll tell you that. I mean, I've had an idea just with experience on it, but going through and doing the actual work where you're looking at those revenue requirements, I mean, honestly, what we've done in the water utility and the sewer utility, I mean, we kind of inherited a crisis a little bit, especially with the Rib Mountain Metro, but with the water utility, I mean, we're building this filtration plant, there's no rate hike with it, there's a plan to, you know, annually increase rates up to 3% per year, up to, keyword being with that. You know, it's that long-term planning, and as Lisa had mentioned, trying to keep the tax rates relatively stable through the whole time. That's what we're trying to do with utilities, and people talk about running government like a business. We should be running it like a utility business, because we're trying to minimize total levy that we're grabbing from our taxpayers in the long term, and we should be trying to keep them stable. And sometimes, yeah, that means you have to use debt at certain times, sometimes you retire debt, but, you know, looking at capitalizing capital goods, offsetting ongoing operating costs wherever you can. So you can deploy $8 of capital for every dollar of expense. I think if you use them and follow the plan, doesn't mean you have to follow 100% what they do. You follow the vast majority of what they're showing you. I think that would be necessary for this village. And I think us not following a long-term plan like that is what has ultimately created most of our financial woes.
Well, we had been doing fine until the past couple of years. All this undesignated fund spending is just drained us dry, it looks like. Which I guess brings me to a couple of questions here, back to a few basics.
Hang on, Ken, Chris asked.
Okay,
No, I just got a quick question, because when we talk about these 5-year plans, didn't we do that literally about 5 years ago? Because I remember even Lesniak sitting over here, even saying that, you know, we can't do these ups and downs, and we
Yes.
always had the plan, but we never stick to it.
That was always Richard's thing too, right? That was,
Yeah.
he tried to implement that too, and
Yeah.
And I remember a plan too, but like you said, it's probably outdated now. I don't remember if it was Ellers that did that, or if it was PFA or PFM or.
Yeah, I think it was PFM that they
Somebody else.
actually did one that was supposed to be like a 5 or 10 year, and, you know, whatever happened with that, you know, I don't,
right.
Well, I'm sure whatever it was is all outdated by now.
I just, it worries me that this
The other thing.
fluctuations are gonna keep increasing every time we have to make a correction.
The other thing is when you have a treasurer start, I would maybe inform them that that exists, so that they are aware, so that they can start looking at it. Because I found out about it, a week ago. Would have been great to know that that even existed, so it could have been something that could have been looked at back in '23, before the '24 budget was done.
I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah, me neither. So, just, it'd be something to share with the staff. Because as your staff changes, you guys are the consistent ones, so it would be nice to make them aware of what you know.
Right. Yeah, every time we change, it's a loss of tribal knowledge.
Right. Well, I mean, we can get it in the budget and figure out the scope of it, that's important too, is finding the scope of what they wanna do. I mean, you said it was really helpful, I think, with the water and sewer utilities, and quite frankly, I think, right, they don't need to necessarily pick out which items we do, but it can give you the total financial capability of what we can do in a given year, to keep stuff flat, and I think that's very, very helpful.
Well, at this point, we don't even know where we're at with our money. Again, still. I guess the question I had for a foundational question is in your last cash and investments, it shows the general fund has 699,000. Apparently that's to carry us through the end of the year, or on your
That changes every
revenue and
time, and
comparison.
you
Well,
have
hang on, I
like
got a question
1.4.
here. I got a question. The revenue comparison to budget for September 30th, for fund revenue unearned, it says 1.8 million. Is that money still coming in this year?
Correct.
Unearned? And how much of that can we realistically anticipate still coming in?
Well, there's a good chunk of it that still comes from the state in November.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. What's the total we can expect in? And I thought I heard you earlier saying that we actually won't have much left by the end of the year to roll over to the next year?
What are you talking?
Well, left over from 2024.
Depends on how much is spent.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Is there an anticipated amount?
It depends on each department head. I just know that there's gonna be extra in your wages, your FICA, your health insurance, based on the positions that are vacant.
So whatever is left over from 2024, is that shown anywhere?
Nope.
Okay, so that's extra. That's something we got coming that we don't know.
correct, and you wouldn't know that until after January,
Right, it's like February, right?
correct? Because,
Not
You're-
even, not even a general amount.
no, because your bills that come in January, if they were for December, they have to be allocated back to the year that they were for,
Well, wages you would know.
So-
That'll stop at the end of the year.
correct?
Some of the big stuff, the usual stuff.
Some of the stuff, but.
Yeah.
And then your last, payroll, if it's split, that won't be all of your wages, because if you get paid on January 5th, and that's back for 2 weeks of December, the journal entry has to be done to put those wages back. I mean, there's a lot of stuff back and forth that it's hard to tell what that's gonna be.
Well, but some stuff is predictable.
That
I
50,
would think
the
most
example
of
we
it
used
would be
before,
predictable.
that 57,000, you said we'd have to recapture it next year.
Mm-hmm.
What if growth surprises to the upside and we have more new construction, does that affect things at all?
Correct, it will.
So perhaps it would be,
It packs you negatively, because it's a plus, so you can't levy it. So that's when your levy starts to go down.
So yeah, there's a lot of different, like I said, there's so many different pieces that are moving.
So Ken, did you want to go through those other things?
Well, okay, well, one of them was in the fire medical emergency, or EMS, whatever. They've got a standby fee of 65,000 for 2025, but that's a contract rate, right? That's under 50,000. That we know will be under 50. So you got 15,000 extra,
Why do you think that's gonna be under 50?
because that's a contract amount. And then the additional
How
per
can that
call.
be, wait, how can that be a contract amount when this year's actual through September was 56? How would it decrease by $6,000?
Well, that's another question. You have, by year end, 75,000 for 2024.
And that's just based on a calculation, so if the 56 is all that it would be,
Okay, well, this is what I asked at the last meeting, is that standby fee, the basic contract for the ambulance?
yes, and I have that in the notes, it says Riverside's service fees and contract, the one above it is the EMS patient fees,
And what is the patient fee?
the additional costs that they get from Riverside, based on how many people they help.
Isn't it $50 a run?
I'd have to pull an invoice, I don't have a clue. If you want, I can ask Teresa to leave.
Well,
her-
I thought I had
She'll
that
come in there.
clarified last time, that the bottom one was the basic fee, and then the $22,000 budgeted one was for the $50 per call extra.
I
Is
can
that
change
what you
it,
guys understood?
I can change that 75 and I will put down, I can put the 56, I'll verify it with the fire chief.
Just to clarify, we're looking at the right items. You can chime in.
Well, anyway.
He's just
I thought-
looking
I
right
thought I had
below the
15
totals.
grand for you.
Last
The
time.
two lines,
Yeah, you're looking at -329, the last one,
yes.
it says 65,000.
Yeah, and my ending prediction was 75, because I was just taking the formula by the end of September, dividing by 9, multiplying by 12. Again, if it's a contract fee, it should only be the 56, so I can change that number.
Oh, right, yeah,
That's,
okay, yeah, I just wanted,
I have 65 because 65 is what was, budgeted in '24. And, I mean,
Yeah.
I can add just a 2 or 3% increase, but if it's up and over that, you're still gonna have to pull from undesignated again.
yeah, that 65, if you look at the history, has been in every
Always
budget I've seen going, even before we had Riverside.
Mm-hmm.
At least going back 5 years or so.
It's just budgeted in there. for the contract.
The
That's
22.
why I put the comments on the side, so you knew which one was for contract and which one was for fees.
Yeah, that is the correct breakdown between the two items.
So we changed that, yeah?
I mean, you could
Just
probably.
the year-end number, I'm gonna change from 75 to the whatever 56 after I verify with fire chief.
Oh, all right, so then 65 is down.
I'll just keep
Well,
it.
I'd like to get a clarification exactly what that line item is. If that's their base price, it should be just under 50,000.
It is verified. In the comments, it tells you that those are the contracts. So that is the
this
contract
the
for our
contract.
side.
Within the contract was just in the ambulance committee's packet, and they showed their 2% increase, but even going into 26, I think it was still under 50, or going into 25, it was still under 50,000.
I don't know how it can be under 50,000 when we paid 56.
It is not under 50,000.
But doesn't it show a schedule of,
There is a schedule, it's not under, it's not under 50,000.
for their basic standby fee?
That's just the base fee to be in the contract to have the service, if we have 0 calls.
Right, is the
It's not
the
under
50,000?
It's not under 50,000.
What is it?
Well, we can pull it up, I know it's
According to-
50-something thousand.
56, 475, 56 for 24.
That's what we paid so far?
Mm-hmm. Just for the contract amount. That's not including the patient fees, which is the line above it.
Right, that's a separate line item. I just had it open, that's the funny thing. So yeah, it's historically been, the budget was 65,000. So, let's see here, I'm looking. We had it, just had it up. It's always slower to find stuff right when you're exactly trying to find it, so.
Okay, well, I mean, if you can't find it, fine, but that's,
It's on hand, I just need a minute. You can circle back to it.
okay. So, still in the fire department, you've got, if you look in the notes, it says two radios. And she wanted 4 radios.
She said she was gonna do 2 of them with her grants.
Okay, so she knows she can get the grant.
We already have the grant,
Okay, so
and
then,
it's been approved.
good. I just didn't want her to be short 2 radios, you know.
No, she said that
Okay,
during the last budget meeting, she said that we could go down, she could buy 2 of them with her grant money.
okay. The, getting back to the police budget of 1.6 million, you're saying that even though you had counted everyone as getting insurance originally, you're saying the cost of insurance is up enough?
You gotta remember, we had 240-some thousand in that line. So we knocked it down to 75. I mean, we took out a huge chunk of what we originally came for that budget
In what line?
in the PD.
Remember the detective was in there, we took that out?
We took out the
Right,
detective,
well,
we
fine,
took out,
because-
I mean, we took out a lot of stuff out of there and went back through, looked, and Chief and I sat down and I said, okay, how many full-time officers are taking it? How many sergeants are taking it? How much, you know, we are giving you exactly what we know on who is taking insurance. So if one of those people quit, or all of a sudden needs insurance and we didn't budget for it because we're decreasing, I mean, we cut everything that we possibly could, went back line by line, matched up to where we're right back to where we are for going back and forth. I mean, we went through everything. The only line that we did not decrease was the outlay equipment, and that is for the protection of your officers. So if you wanna decrease that line and tell the officers that we don't wanna protect them,
So
I mean,
you're,
that would be huge.
so
So
you're,
obviously we want that.
you're saying between the, insurance costs and wage increases, let's just say the chief finishes out at 2024 at 1.350.
That'll go back into undesignated.
Okay, I know, I'm just saying, if he finishes it out at 1.350 $100,000, now he's looking at $250,000 more just to get by. The 250 is caused by wages and insurance?
That is being budgeted. Budgeting is not always the actuals. So when you're comparing, you need to compare the budgeted amount for '24 and compare it to your '25 budget. Looking at the actuals and the estimated year end and trying to compare that to the budget, it's comparing apples to oranges.
Well, I'm more looking at the actual, because whatever was
What happens if-
budgeted before may have been over budgeted.
And what happens if my estimate's wrong?
Well, right now, what if it's wrong the other way? We're
Then it'll go back
extremely,
into
we're
undesignated.
extremely tight on money here.
Then it'll go back into undesignated at the end of the year. And then your fund balance will increase.
Well, I understand that if we have the money to begin with. Now, you're saying we can just put in these expenses and the
So
revenue
I will
will
let you
increase to
guys
match it.
know that if you decrease your PD and your EMS, your shared revenue will decrease.
That is true.
So
That is absolutely
you
true.
can, if you cannot defund your PD and your EMS fire, or you will lose your shared revenue.
That is
Lose what revenue?
Shared
you
revenue.
lose so there was a big increase in share, it was a part of that big bill that incidentally changed the referendum rules as part of it too. But it was part of that big bill that gave all this extra money to municipalities and counties
Okay, and is that showing up on here?
in the surplus. Well, it's part of
I
that,
mean, on our
it's in the
revenues?
intergovernmental revenues.
Okay,
It'll be one of the line items on there. That's actually a big part of the reason why our deficit didn't look as bad as compared to budgeted last year as well, because we got more shared revenue than we normally would have because of that bill that had passed in the state legislature. But there was the key, provision of that shared revenue is that it has to be spent on public safety or public works.
well, yeah, but what I'm looking at here is it says a 2.3% increase.
State shared revenues, 473, 152. So if
Yeah.
you look, in 2022, we only had 242,000. Then it went up a bunch in 2023 because that's when the bill passed. In 2024, we got an increase again, and we get a little bit of an increase. But that delta between the 242 and the 473 is at risk if you cut anything in public safety.
So we're talking about not even $11,000
We're talking about
increase.
250 grand. The difference between 242 and 473, Ken. That's what the difference is.
Right. But I'm talking about last year to this year. It's only
Yeah, because we didn't cut the funding last year either, so if you cut the funding, you could lose the 200 grand is what Alex is saying.
okay.
Doesn't matter what was last year. The funding,
So they're saying if you cut anything, you lose the whole increase.
It's a potential.
But that's what
There's
there's,
nuances
200 grand
to
is
it.
at stake.
Well, I see that, I mean,
So if you-
but there must be rules.
Well, I'm sure there are.
That would, you know,
There are.
I guess we should know these
But you can't
things.
compare last year to this year and say, oh, it's only 11%. It's not, it's from when the bill passed to what it is today.
And each year, they have to sign, like the fire chief and the police chief have to sign. It's both staffing and expenditures that they did not cut funding or staffing. I mean,
At
correct,
all?
Chief, like what, maybe you can explain some of the documentation you have to do each year.
Yeah, I think the fire department's got more than us because we're not a merged service, so I have to look it over and then I generally don't have to fill anything out, just if we had merged or whatever, but there is that shared revenue stuff that they have to fill out.
So that,
My understanding is, I mean, I believe like 15% of that shared revenue is immediately at risk for any budget cuts, and then there's more rules depending on how much you go about it, but, I mean, my understanding from the legislature standpoint is that they tied it specifically to that, especially when all the discussions were going on nationwide as a counter to it, that, okay, hey, we have a bigger surplus than we thought. You know, there was a lot of messaging about defunding police and the like. So, okay, hey, we're gonna give a carrot out to all these municipalities that are struggling these days with the higher expenses, but we don't want them spending on whatever they want, and we don't want to reward municipalities, you know, I mean, quite frankly, it was probably more geared at like Milwaukee and Madison, but, you know, you cut.
so
Police
in
spending,
effect,
we're gonna
it's almost
punish
like a grant. They're granting us this increase in funds if we use it for this particular purpose.
One of a few purposes, yes.
Well, then we're even worse off if that's tied, that money's tied up in that department, or those two departments. It gives us less to work with otherwise.
I mean, so it's not dollar for dollar necessarily, but it's,
You have to make a good faith
You bet.
effort.
Well,
You can't make wholesale changes, or
Okay,
wholesale
well,
cuts.
yeah.
let's go back to what we agreed at the last, somebody agreed, to keep it the same budget, the 1.543, that's not cutting it.
Well, we tried to keep it
Right.
the same, but then you can't, you have the increases for the union, you have the increases on the wages, you have the increases on the health insurance. What do you want,
And I guess that's what I
what
asked,
do you
is
what do you
that
want the PD
250
to cut?
caused by that?
And you know what, that's, you know, I guess that falls on us, as we didn't ask those questions Thursday night, or whatever night it was last week. We didn't, yeah. There's, I've worked enough overnights that they're starting to blend together. Yeah, we didn't ask those questions. So to match dollar for dollar, I get it. Was I expecting a $75,000 increase? Not really, but I get it. I guess I'm amenable to that increase because it's all laid out by a fact for very specific purposes. The things that could be held in check were held in check. And we are where we are. You know, keep going around in circles on it isn't gonna do us any good.
Well said.
I mean, if I could just add, the things that I control out of my spending, so to speak, clothing allowance, maintenance, this type of stuff, you know, we went through and a lot of those are the same. You can only cut so much out of those, right? It's all out of wages and health insurance, which isn't that's not my area of expertise. The stuff that I could cut, I mean, a lot of it we kept the same. Like Lisa said, the one area that did go up is, you know, just in the interest of full disclosure, is the capital outlay equipment, but You know, we're asking for a shield, a taser, a radio, and bulletproof vests. And, I mean, those types of things are pretty important. I mean, the vests are contractually, we're obligated contractually, and even for those of us who aren't in the union, you know, you don't wanna put us out there with a vest that's expired. And that fluctuates, because I look at the budget every year and I keep a list of whose vests are gonna expire when, so then I know which year I've gotta build X number of vests into it. And it just so happens we're coming up on a few expensive years where we got people transitioning out of their vests.
Is that a 5-year?
5 years, yep. But we do get half of that money back too.
All from
But, yeah,
the
just
or something?
goes into a different fund out of the bulletproof vest program.
Yeah. That's right, I used to get those in.
Right.
One quick question for Lisa. The column all the way on the right, the percent change, that's the percent change from 25 back to 24, not 24 year to date, right?
Correct.
Okay, so given how much the health insurance increase was and other increases, those increases from previous year were greater than 4.92% individually, correct? Very clearly. So the fact that the overall budget only went up for the police department 4.92% shows that you clearly cut where you could.
Correct.
Okay. I guess that's really what the takeaway needs to be, is that given how big those increases were in the grand scheme, they managed to minimize it as much as possible.
Okay, what's next?
Yeah, let's see if I have anything. Okay, so contingency is empty. We don't have anything. Is contingency the same as undesignated?
Contingency is the line that I just stuck on there, so that if you guys want to rebuild the fund balance, you can. So if you look at the contingency and you go over to the comments, it's to rebuild the fund balance. I'm not necessarily saying that it's something that needs to be put in this year. This was kind of the question on, you know, currently we're sitting at the tax rate increase to be 4.8%. If you guys said, you know, we want to do a 5% increase, I would go back to ours and go, okay, let's calculate, and what do we need to put into that contingency line for that 5%? Or if you guys said, I want to do, you know, I want to max the levy this year, and you want me to go back, if you wanted to put $10,000 in there. I mean, but there's a lot of stuff that I think with 24 really being watched, I think it should fall a lot closer than your previous 23.
So as this is right now, the money is all allocated, so if something comes up where we need 50 grand, we're gonna have to take it from one of these other line items.
One of your other line items, or you're gonna have to hopefully have TID 1 start having, not needing so much money.
Well, we can hold all kinds of stuff, but I'm just saying, the way this is set up,
The way it's set up is that you would have to take from a different line unless, again, your positions are open. I would never take from a salary line. I wouldn't take from your salary, your taxes, your health insurance, your retirement, because otherwise when you go to look at your budgets, it's gonna look not correct. So that is where I would just kind of tally in the back of your head somewhere that, hey, this position was open in January, February, March, we have this much extra, now we have this much that's gonna fall back into fund balance.
well, that gets back to what I had requested like a year ago, is whenever there's an original budget and you make a budget amendment to increase or decrease that line, that would show on the sheet, so somebody gets it.
It won't work that way. The new software, I can show you what the original is, but any budget amendment that was done or budget adjustment that was done during the year falls in the same bucket. So whether or not I came to the board and said I need a budget amendment, or if I decided to do a budget adjustment within a department, It all falls in the same bucket. So I mean, I can do a spreadsheet based on the software system, but it'll show the original and it'll show whatever adjustments were done.
Okay. Anything else?
In general, or, I mean,
Just, we're moving along, I'm not sure where we're
okay, well,
going.
as far as going down,
We're trying to
as far as going down the list, I guess I'm done going down the list. I just got a couple general questions, and that'll be all I have.
So what's anybody's thoughts on this contingency?
Well, I'd like to get verification that this 2 million is for real, because
It's for real. I had Ellers walk through it and verify it.
I'd like some kind of documentation or explanation how that works, because I don't want to have a budget and find out somehow we violated some statute or something exceeding our levy limits. Because that's like 400,000. If that's not correct,
And you
then
took
our
out a
budget
$7.8 million debt
is
this
way
year.
up.
What was that, Lisa?
I said you took out a $7.8 million debt this year. So those dollar amounts for that levy, or for that debt for this year, is $690,000 in principal and 300-some thousand in interest total, so like almost $1 million.
Okay, but that gets back to what we talked about before. You said the debt levy is here somewhere else that's not included in this 2 million.
It's an
You said
allocation.
the actual was like 2.6 million total
For
levy
the
with
overall levy.
the debt and the general.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's,
And if you guys, if you agree to the sheets that I sent you, I can send you the worksheet that kind of walks through and explains per what Ellers has, but I'm not gonna send that out until I figure out exactly what you guys want me to do with the budget, so that we don't have 50 documents going out with a company's logo until it's finalized. Because right now I'm just using it as working documents.
Well, we should revisit that $16,000 expense for Ellers for the 5 to 10 year plan and see if anybody else is interested in doing that. I do want to do it.
okay, well, where are you gonna take it from?
We don't have to, right, Lisa?
We can increase the levy by another 16,000.
Right. Am I thrilled about that idea? Not exactly, but I think in the grand scheme,
Just direction.
it serves a suitable purpose for doing so.
I mean, I guess this is kind of where it gets interesting. Because like I said, our general property taxes, right, if I'm reading this right, and I don't know, do we have the Fund 350 numbers comparison also, like that,
Mm-hmm.
that in your?
It's in there.
Well, that's what I was trying to figure out before, because the Fund 350 is only, the property tax revenue is only $7,000 more.
Well, because we have some other tools as well to mitigate some of this. This kind of gets into some of the bigger picture thinking I've been trying to do with this, right? You know, we're not like a household per se, where we know we've got a debt fund balance. We can do to ease in hikes. And we know we have other tools as well. Because right now, looking at this budget, right, there's no contingency in here. Which has me a little bit concerned. And we have some other tools we can use. So we're not just expensing capital equipment like, you know, we talked about it at length with the police cars, right? We know long-term, we have to do more than just expensing whatever comes up. We should be trying to budget for what we really need. So, I mean, I know I had looked at our, I'm gonna call it the debt fund analysis, but, you know, easing in some of the investments we made with Kronenwetter Drive, for example, and, TID 2, you know, we don't have to worry about anything with the, you know, anything debt-wise with an ambulance right now. You know, whether we wanna do we wanna look at doing a plan regarding some of our capital equipment or capital projects? I mean, looking at your list, we don't have much in capital projects.
And that might be something that, when you're doing that 5 to 10 year projection for Ellers, that you kind of sit down and talk with them and ask them to put that scenario in and give 2 different items. Where the, you know, if it was just cash-based working off the levy, or if you kind of run with your example and have them put it together and kind of show that as well, so that people could see the difference in the impact.
I mean, because I just think, even for this budget, you're right, it'll take a little bit to get Ellers to get that work done. But for this year, I mean, I know we want a balanced budget, but I would argue we should probably plan for a surplus, so we have a contingency in there. Because right now with our
And
general
that's where I
fund
said,
balance.
if you guys kind of would tell me what percentage of taxes you guys wanted to go up, I could go back and do the dollar amount, or if you guys decide on the dollar amount that you want that contingency line, I can go back and talk.
I mean, what I'm saying, we know, right, if you go on the Fed watch, you can see right now it's like 92% consensus that interest rates are gonna drop, you know, 0.5% by first quarter of next year. You know, and 50-50 would be a full percent. I think what I'm getting at is we have opportunity with our debt fund balance that we have, where we have 413 or so thousand, and I have to look at the fund 350, because I think it's important to look at that, but we could use some of these tools right now to improve our general fund situation.
Well, you could choose not to, put back the $90,000 into your Fund 350 and levy for that 90,000 to go back into that 350 for the fire truck amount that we paid. And you could just ask that that be part of your general. And not put that, you know, like we wouldn't be increasing the levy to get that 90,000 back that we paid out. We would just have used that fund balance and leave that alone. And then maybe take a look at increasing that fund balance and the general levy by 90,000.
I mean, this is what I'm kind of saying with the board, that we should be thinking about. We're not gonna cut our way to prosperity here, only.
No.
But we can use this one opportunity to try to improve our situation. And, you know, if we're using debt for capital expenditures and offset some things, you know, it might free up some funds to improve services or even lower some of the costs of what we're doing. Like, I'm not seeing anything really for roads, for example. I mean, I know we're in a tough situation right now with the budget, but quite frankly, it's because we've made financial mistake after financial mistake as a village, in my opinion. I mean, I think it's kind of sad if you look at some of our, and I'm not saying everyone is necessarily doing well financially in this village. I don't want to hammer taxpayers, but if you look at the census data, you know, we're the highest median household income municipality in the whole county, and we're broke as a village. Shouldn't that make people question what's going on? I think we gotta, I really think we need to do more than what we're seeing in this budget as it sits right now.
I do agree with Alex that for future growth and prosperity, we should finance some of these important items like others, make sure we put that on there. And also look into purchasing the police unit. Like those are assets that we will use, so we should think ahead.
So Lisa, did Craig get with you on some projected increases with the fee structure things that we changed last week and
No,
excavating permit increases?
the excavating, that got implemented. As far as everything else, he said over the next few weeks he'll be getting with staff.
Because that'll be potential for some income.
Correct. And Alex, just something to kind of, that could be looked at is there is a fund balance in Fund 750, so we could potentially look at doing next year's and taking it out of that fund balance and doing it directly from that, but I would have to find out if there's any rules or regulations based from the auditors in that fund, or if that can go all the way down. Because if you budget $100,000 for whatever, for your capital equipment, and you only used 90,000, you got 10,000 that sat in that fund balance, so over the years, that fund balance grows. So,
Wasn't that the one we said we put 15% in every year?
could be.
I mean, there's a policy that says that.
I'd have to go back and look, so
Who follows policies anymore?
Everybody.
so like I said, that's just one that I kind of,
So I
you'd
guess
have to look at the rules and what can be done with the fund balance. I don't think with, as close as things are for 25, I don't know that that's something that you guys want to do this year, if it's something that you want to look at more for the 26, but.
Well, I'm not too interested in rating our funds that have money and converting that to some kind of debt. But that would be for the future. That's not for tonight anyway, right?
Well, it could impact tonight because it could free up, right, all these are interrelated with each other. I mean, you look at, you're saying rating the Fund 750, well, instead of expensing some of these big capital items, we should be looking at capitalizing them or financing them over a long period. If that's making sense, like, right, we know there's a dump truck coming in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Okay, so us establishing a sinking fund in 750, I guess it lowers total amount of debt at that time, but we also know most of our debt matures at the end of 2028. And we also want to try to mitigate property tax hikes right now. I mean, we all know we have had high inflation the last few years. People are under assault from a bunch of different ways. But we have services we need to provide our residents as well. I mean, there's a lot of areas we need support in, whether it's roads or parks or, quite frankly, our police department. I mean, we know they're the lowest staffed in the whole area. I mean, we can't just do nothing, we can't just cut stuff. We can be smart about what we're doing, and we can do it without increasing taxes that much. Quite frankly, we can probably do it without increasing the levy 100 and, what do I got, 100 and, sorry, I'm pulling it up, 117,000 for the general property tax.
Well, I'm not sure where do you get the 117,000?
I took that from where we were last meeting to where we are this meeting.
Well, I'm looking at the first line of Fund 100. Last year it was 1,655,000. In 2025 will be 400,000 more. And Lisa says that's not counting the debt levy, which will also increase, so if you're
But-
talking a 28% increase, that's a tax increase, right?
But last year, so yes, you had the 1.6 in the general, but you had over 600,000 in capital. And this year, you only have 286 in capital. So it's just, the 400 went from the capital to the general. It's an
Yeah, it's not
allocation
full.
piece, and that's what is the hardest thing to have people understand is you have to look at everything as a whole, and then it gets allocated. It's the same thing when we were talking about wages, it's what pot does it come out of? It's an allocation piece, and without sitting and looking at the whole picture as a whole and not really just focusing on one particular item, you just have to look at it as a whole.
I mean, do we have a summary of each of the fund, like, you know, the total levy in the packet that's proposed as it is right now? Like, so we know some went into capital replacement or came out of what we were spending on that into the general.
And I do have that, but I have it as a working document until you guys finalize what you wanna do, and then I will send you the Ellers, and it'll actually break it all down. I just haven't shared it because I don't want 6, 7, 8 documents out there. So I do have one. If you want, I can bring it up and you can look at it.
You'll know what's in it after you pass it.
But
Yeah,
I just don't wanna send it where it's,
I get it, I mean, it's just important because of how they play
yeah,
with each
and
other.
I'll bring it up. I just didn't wanna send it out because then it's just gonna get confusing because it's always the same title.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about it, we have the total levy, we have the general levy that's subject to levy limits, and we have the debt levy, and the debt levy piece is really what's gonna raise or lower your taxes right now.
Well, that's another question I have. In your September 30th report, you showed $412,000 in the debt service fund, basically a surplus. Now, on your page here, you're showing a fund balance of 672,000, almost 673 for the end of 2024.
It's an estimate.
Well, why is that surplus increasing? I thought for debt, you're supposed to levy, you're supposed to know what you're going to need for your debt service and levy accordingly.
Yeah, we took out debt this year.
Well, that's why I'm asking why there's like $260,000 increase in the fund balance. I mean, the
You have a 90
412 shouldn't even be there.
There's a $90,000 increase,
Okay,
and that is due to the 90,000 that you guys wanted me to make up for last year's
right, okay.
payment.
Mhm.
Right.
So that's where your difference is right now. If you look at Fund 350, you'll see that you have revenue by 90,000 higher than the expenditures. And not looking at the September, I don't have the September financials in front of me.
Well, it said 412 in there, which would make sense because that was 500 and some, and we took 90,000 out of that to make the fire truck payment. So I would believe the 412, I'm just wondering, aside from that 90, to bring it back up to where it was,
And I would have to verify the formulas. Maybe there's something off in the formula on this budget spreadsheet.
because I guess it's my understanding, you can check with Ayers, but I don't think you're supposed to levy more than you need and build up, a fund there.
I can levy the extra 90,000.
Right. I know that.
So after that, like I said, I'm wondering if there's a formula, because most of them, there might be something wrong with the formula on the bottom, because I can tell you right now, based on the other funds, it's typically the budgeted amount that feeds into it, and I don't see the dollar amount there, so I think it's just a formula.
And then actually, I didn't know this, but in 2025, it's another 90, but that is, okay, yeah, that's where the 90 comes in the 2025.
Mm-hmm.
So that wouldn't account for the 672 as.
No,
as-
I'm guessing that's a formula. It's
So
just,
there's the 90 from last year and the 90 from this year.
correct.
So that's what it should be.
The 90 from last year
'Cause we didn't
brings
levy.
the fund balance up, and the 90 for 2025 should be included in the 2025 levy.
Right.
Mhm.
But it shouldn't show up as a surplus.
No, like I said, I'm almost positive, because most of the fund balances, you take the adopted and it goes, and it feeds into an estimate for the 25.
I
So,
thought the idea of the double levy was to refund the general fund that we took out of undesignated to pay the loan payment.
we did the loan payment out of Fund 350,
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
It's still out of the.
so it's just going back into
it'll
the,
go back to 350.
Yeah, I guess what we should have done is take it out of general funds, then we could have got it back. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, I mean, whether you take it, it's restricted, the balance we have in 350 can only be used for principal and interest. So that's really the crux of what I was trying to plan out when I was talking about freeing up funds.
that's
to
where
help
I
our
was kind of
police
saying,
department, for example, is recapitalize their stuff, their capital equipment they need. You can free up enough funds to fund a detective position and keep the general fund neutral. The impact to it. Actually have a little bit of an improvement for the general fund.
oh, but that's kind of where I was saying that 90,000 is making up, and we're gonna put it back in Fund 350. You could choose not to make that up and put it into your contingency line. It's just Fund 350 would never make up that 90,000 that they paid out.
Well, like what do you mean in the contingency? Because,
In your general fund, I'd have to,
so we'd be doing the double levy, you wouldn't be making it. I guess-
I'd have to go back and verify, but based on the debt payments that we have, even without that double, I think we could still do it in the general. But people would have to state that they didn't wanna make up that payment, and the whole point was to make up the payment that we paid. So, I think eventually it's gonna come down to when you guys wanna make a purchase, and it's gonna be a strategic plan of what payments come out of that fund balance for 350.
Well, we can use that to cover additional debt service payments we need to make for additional investments we make in the community, wherever that is, whether it's parks, roads, police department equipment, to free up funds, or the general fund, to keep the levy as flat as possible through 2028, when 85% of our debt matures, and then then you don't need to keep easing it in anymore. I guess that was my grand strategy, I was thinking.
And just make sure that you keep the required fund balance in 350
Mhm.
because of the bond that we have. We have a revenue bond that requires a certain amount in that fund balance.
And which one is the revenue bond for?
I'd have to go look at my papers. Sorry.
I mean, yeah, I don't
Just,
know, what is my,
That's all that I know is that because you guys have a revenue bond, there's a requirement that 350 has a fund balance of a certain dollar amount. So,
okay.
is this what you were looking for, Aaron? Or I mean, Alex?
Yeah, I just can't read it that well from there. I don't know if there's a way to print it out or something, so we can all look at it.
Email it to us?
I'm just trying to look, so basically our total.
Yeah, if you can just email it to all of us, then.
Are we agreeing with this? Like, I don't want this one to come out and then you guys to change some numbers and then I send out another one, it's gonna have the exact same title with different numbers and now you guys are gonna argue over what numbers are right.
Yeah, I mean, I
That's,
don't-
that's the only thing that I'm hesitant on.
You can't change the title when you send it? like-
No, when he sends it, it's always the same thing, just new numbers.
I mean, I don't know if we are, because I think there's a potential we can do something in a couple different ways, either.
Well, I think we're kind of down at the last minute here. Tonight was supposed to be to finalize what we agreed on from last week and move forward. Tonight is not a revamp of the budget, okay? It sounds like that's what you're getting at.
It's not really a revamp of the budget. It's a revamp of how we want to levy for the budget. Because this right here shows, we're not fundamentally against, increasing the levy a small amount, but we don't necessarily have to increase it by how many percent?
Well, according to this paperwork, it's gonna go up 28%, right?
No,
4.8% on a $200,000 house.
we don't necessarily need to raise people's taxes
You're
that high.
going up 100 and,
If the overall levy goes up 28%, how does a house only go up a couple percent?
look at the total. You're looking only at one avenue. You're not looking at the whole picture. Look at the whole picture. We're going from 2.4 to 2.6.
Because they transferred, the general fund is 1.655, goes to 2.1, but then the capital goes to 286,000. So you're reducing one levy and increasing another one. So the one goes up 28%, the other's going down by 60%.
So your total overall is not. You're very, very close to what you were 2 years ago.
Okay, what's the allowable adjustments?
That's my ups and downs. In my worksheet.
Well, I'd like to see a copy of that. I think I can handle looking at it and not confusing it with anything else that comes out. That would, might be helpful.
So, I mean, last year's inflation was 2.44%. We wanted to smooth in some of this and use some of our debt fund balance to smooth in, or not do a full double levy. If we cut the debt fund levy, if you scroll up a little bit, so the debt levy, you know, you don't necessarily spend that full amount, you don't want to. But if you basically cut that delta, 2.6 million down to, between that and 2.476, if you split the difference on that, you'd be increasing taxes less than inflation was last year, or right around what inflation was. That total amount would be $62,000. If you took $62,890 out of our debt fund, or just didn't take the full double levy on the fire truck, only took a third of the 90,000 additional, you'd reduce property tax hikes to only 2.4%.
From the 2.4 to the 2.6 is 125,779. If you don't double out that 90,000 for the fire truck, you're down to $35,000 increase. Just depends on if you want to make up for the payment that was made last year that wasn't levied.
I mean, I think that's what I was offering, is we could do one more thing for the community. But, you know, doing that double levy, it's another tool. And keep property taxes as less of a hike. I think 4.8%, we don't need to raise taxes that high this year.
Because the year before, it went down by 4.2. That's kind of what I was trying to explain on the bottom half. 2 years ago, it was approximately 768, maybe 771.
And then how are we funding others as well? And how are we accounting for the contingency fund? I mean, I think, you know, when you're saying reworking the budget, we still have some questions to answer. Those are the questions to answer.
Well, she keeps asking, we don't give her any answers.
Okay,
She's asked 3 times what we want to do for contingency fund, and we've not said anything.
I mean, I think we absolutely should have a contingency fund, or else we're gonna be in big trouble if we ever have an emergency
So
pop
what's
up.
the number?
Or what's the percentage that you guys want to increase taxes to? I need one or the other.
So you leave them at 4.8%, but then you don't do the fire truck.
Please?
That would be what makes sense to me.
So that's what, 9 grand?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that way we stay at the same 4.8%, which isn't, you know, it's where it was 2 years ago, a little more. But we don't do the fire truck, and there's your contingency amount.
Well, because the double levy of a fire truck is just building balance in our debt fund, right?
That's your contingency right there, for the start of it.
Well, then where are we getting the 90 grand for the contingency?
We're not double levying for the fire truck.
So my levy is gonna come down in the 350 and it's gonna increase in the 100, still be in the total.
Okay, so you just
I'm
transfer.
allocating different,
Okay, you get 90,000 more in the general levy,
Right.
not the debt levy.
That's
Okay.
Right.
And that won't cause issues, because like.
I
you
will
mentioned-
verify with others.
Well, I meant
But I don't-
issues, I meant like, we increased by the 90,000 more in the general levy, then we won't have to cut an additional 90,000 the next year.
Well, you're still, that's where you're always gonna be playing back and forth, that's why I don't wanna ever max out. So like if I'm allotted $1 million to levy, I don't ever wanna max at that $1 million, cause the next year I'd have to subtract, and the max that we could go is 950. So you never wanna be at that max. You wanna be within reason. And that's where this amount kind of goes the same. We had such a deduction and now we have an increase in our debt, so you gotta compare your 763 to your 718. I mean, you're continuously, but you wanna stay close, so you never wanna go to your max. Cause if you do, the next year you would really hurt. That's where others is gonna come in, cause they will help you with that.
I think.
So you make that note then, Lisa?
Yep.
Anything else?
So are we gonna get a copy of this, the thing that was on the screen?
Once I
Once it
read,
changes to 90
once I
grand.
change everything, I'll get Ellers to give me one more update and I'll send it out.
Sound good?
And I'd like to see a copy of Eller's previous, financial plan, the one we did last time.
I tried looking, I couldn't find it. Somewhere in the G
I don't think
drive.
it was an Eller's at the end of the last one.
I thought it was Eller's, but we did pay somebody.
We did, I know we did.
And I don't remember ever seeing it when it was done. It may have come to the board.
I tried finding something that I somewhere lost in the G
And I'd
drive.
like to see what it actually looks
I'll
like.
ask Bobby on Wednesday, maybe she can find it.
Well,
It's maybe the PFM also.
And how are we funding others too? When we decided that?
So what do you think about the Ellers financial plan?
Well, I guess it would probably be a good idea. If we can see it and.
I don't know, I'd like to see what they look like and, because to me, it doesn't seem like rocket science to plan out ahead. It's just that in the past few years, nobody's done that like we did,
You have to have
say
stuff
in
that's-
20 and 21, they had the 5-year plan.
I think you can get a 5-year plan from somebody if what they come into and what the next year is kind of consistent. When I came in, 23's budget was horrible. So I couldn't even use that as a tool to
Right.
start doing a projection off
It was
of.
not
So
going-
24 was an estimate and that had a bunch of different people's things, so now 25. So now from 25 forward, could I have done something? Probably. But
Yeah.
with 23, with me coming in with as bad as
Oh,
that,
yeah, because
there was
23
no way.
23 was Dwayne's budget.
Yeah.
You were hired last year, but it still wasn't your budget, it was Manley's budget last year.
Correct.
So,
So I mean, you're gonna have to get somebody and then have them
yeah.
and know exactly, we finally just started getting together some equipment lists and things, so people started putting together, and we just started gathering everything, so I mean, it just started to kind of come together with everything, so you could finally start to put out a projection.
So this Ellers thing, where would it go, at least the 16 grand, what would you?
It'd be in the accounting.
All right, stick with it then.
I mean, I wouldn't disagree that it's, with the statement, it's not rocket science. I mean, I guess, yeah, it's not rocket science, but, there's more to it, I think, than what I think, is how it's being described. There are a lot of nuances to it, like we were mentioning with the different funds, the different levies, the rules behind it, when you take debt, when you don't. I mean, a good example of some of the work they do, I would look at the August 1st, 2023 Utility Committee packet. And that's just initial study, but all the rate analyses they were doing for our water and sewer utilities, and what it does on a cash basis and from an accounting basis. I think there's a lot of things to consider that are easy to kind of overlook, but it's complicated, but I think the same theories apply to our taxes, right? Again, you're trying to keep stable and you're trying to keep the total levy as low as possible for everybody. Same with the utility, the revenue requirement. Won't be grabbed from people. I think the way we've done things in this village, right? If we have a big expense that comes up, like we've rarely taken on debt at opportune times. We just expense some big things. We don't have a long-run capital plan. And that's where they help you.
Well, if you look at the debt service fund back 5 years, you'll see what we were paying in debt service and how much that's dropped due to the refinancing. And we should have been using that money that we saved, would have gone to debt service and used it for some capital projects of some type. But it just never seemed to put together that money that we saved didn't go somewhere else that was
Beneficial.
where we got something to show for it.
See, I see the whole points, like when we do talk about Ellers, I think if we had a financial director that would stay, then I think they would have a grip over, 2 or 3 years from now to literally figure this stuff out and could see it. In this case now, we're gonna be high and dry again, so maybe this Elders for 16 grand can at least guide us through till we get a new financial director, and then basically probably, at least guide us with this scenario.
Yeah.
Because
At
I
least then
think
they can work with your next finance director to.
finance director to kind of get this going on track, because, and the thing, if it was the 16,000, we'll probably end up saving that wages.
Yeah.
Just saying out loud, it's probably the time we get a finance
Yeah.
director, it'll probably be,
Well, they're not gonna take the place of
I
it.
don't know.
No. but at least that they've kind of got all the figures and stuff set in. So I guess that's just my 2 cents on it.
And I'll let you know, like for Ellers right now, anything that's going on, any updates that I have for the projects, anything that I've been dealing with financially, they are aware of. They have gotten my emails, they know exactly where RPS is standing with the TID projects, they know all that. They've been updated on, like I said, sewer and water. So they have the TIDs already done, they have the sewer and water done. You're gonna have a financing advisor that can help the next person not struggle, and Ellers is great, Brian has been great, he has taken time, and while the village has paid for a study to be done, when I have questions about how did you arrive to this number, can you walk me through this? Hey, I got this sheet, or I got that sheet, I don't know how to work it. They take their time and they walk me through it, they help teach your finance person as well. So it's just kind of a nice piece. That's been my input with them.
Yeah,
Well,
we're
majority
just
of
the
people want-
budget, so we're not actually hiring them yet, so.
So again, I can put it in the budget, but then would I be decreasing that contingency down to 74 so that we don't change from the 4.8? That would be my only question.
I'd go with that personally.
Sure.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't wanna raise taxes
So
more.
that, down next year, squad car, because if we put a car in there, then that's gonna come out of contingency fund right out of the gate.
Well, I think what I'm seeing with the squad car, I wouldn't call it my squad car, right, it's already in the budget for one. I was arguing that we
Aaron just
shouldn't,
mentioned about another one.
oh, I think he was talking about financing. the squad car.
Financing it.
Instead of doing this and using our debt fund to cover that cost of financing it.
We might be able to stick that one for 26, because the chief said we bought 3 cars. This year, we probably just need 1 anyway.
Right.
Just in the scope of stuff, maybe 26, we need to get 2 cars. And then maybe look at,
Well, I mean, it should be part of the 5-year plan
yes,
going forward.
yeah.
I like what the role, I guess that's the one thing being around for 10 years or so is I've seen these charts of all the inventory, rolling stock, how far out they go and all these things. And as we get turnover, this stuff never seems to get turned over.
Mhm.
So, and then it's, you're talking to Greg tonight, oh yeah, I'm working on this chart. Well, we had a chart 8
Right,
years ago,
right.
you know.
Well, and that goes back to, when, I think the first time that when Kim started here, I was asking about what she was learning as utility clerk, and I said, don't you have an SOP? And it's your work instructions, it's your book of knowledge, and there is very little, if any of that here. It's never been developed as a continuity plan. And unfortunately, more knowledge is gonna walk out the door, and we're gonna lose another bit, and another bit, and another bit. And until, at some point, we're gonna need to suck it up and pay someone to build that, so that every time we lose someone, we don't lose as much
Right.
knowledge walking out the door.
Yeah, I know, we didn't have an SOP and I was struggling. I actually reached out to other municipalities and asked if they had one. And they sent me some stuff, but it was for a different software system, so I had to kind of go back and forth and kind of tweak certain things, but at least it gave me something because I felt like I was missing.
Right.
Right. And even your use, because you have what, the G drive? Shared drive, okay. Even in that, there've been so many different people who put things in over the years that
They don't name it the same.
you know, the organization there is, you know, there isn't easily usable resources to go, oh, yeah, this plan is on that file.
You know, and I don't know what the structure of the G drive is either, and it's getting a little off topic, but maybe it should be by department, and then each department has, you know, then the employee has their own folder in that department, and then when they leave, that's like Lisa's folder, or Ken's folder, whoever's been in that department over the last 10 years, that their stuff stays in that department folder.
Right, and really that's to have that sense of continuity, because we can pay Ellers 16 grand to build this 5-year plan, but unless we work, constantly keep the plan in mind and work the plan,
It's not gonna make it.
And like I said, I think that's where it's gonna be huge for you guys as a board, that when you hire somebody, that you give that to the next person. Because if there's information that you guys have as a board, it is critical to give that information to that staff member that's filling that chair, so they're not fumbling through to finally get to the point and go, oh, well, we had that all along. Giving that up front would be huge.
Because that was my original question too, because I thought we did it, but we never follow it. You know, we're paying somebody to do it, we never follow it
Well,
because.
we do all these kinds of plans, we never follow any of them.
Yep.
But that's why I'm thinking it might just be better for you guys to start
I mean,
giving it
last year
back
was
to the staff.
Last year was the road one, remember we did the road one, where we paid PAA to come in and evaluate all the roads, and they said, here's your top 10 worst roads, and you can do 2 a year. And how many we do?
He said, don't put it on the shelf, don't leave it on the shelf.
And where is it? It's on the shelf somewhere.
In the garbage.
Probably.
I mean, that is the risk of this, so I'll be honest. We follow the plan with the utilities. You know, it will take, I mean, ultimately it just takes stable leadership from the board, which, I mean, we all can infer on that. I mean, you know,
But that's getting a little off.
well, frankly, I mean, I'm also leading and segueing into this, that, I mean, you know, we are where we're at with the budget, I mean, but, I mean, I'm not a fan of this budget at all. I don't think we have, I mean, I know we're not really in a good position right now to do that much more long-term, but, you know, we've got nothing in here really for capital projects and roads. I mean, we did get Kronenwetter Drive North, but that was kind of already done before, and we're doing the other roads there. So I guess I'm fine with that piece, but we have nothing for parks. We don't really have a plan long-term to address our police staffing. You know, there was a proposal for the detective. I know we can work on that over time, but there's nothing in there to look at that, even if it was later in the year. We have, you know, nothing else in here for some of the other infrastructure we might need in the village, you know.
You do have some, if you look at your capital improvements, you have 125,000, and yes, it does do the guardrail and things like that, but parks is part of that list.
Okay.
And as far
Where
as
is
your
that?
roads, you do have the Kronenwetter Drive, but then you also have 247,000 for other capital, or other road improvements, so kinda like this year,
Oh, we kept
Sunny
that
Court
then.
or whatever, so.
Okay.
It is in there, it's
Yeah, there was
just
some, I
combined,
saw chips in there.
so,
And I
it
guess-
is in there.
Okay, so,
It didn't disappear, it's in the capital.
okay, there's a full 247, so I guess we got some of that in there, but,
So, just so you're aware, that is in there, yeah, that did not decrease.
and we did get the administrator search or not? Or is that gonna have to be a budget? Because
we did not.
we did not get that in there?
No.
So,
Well, on a good note, we have an interview this Thursday.
okay, but we'll need a finance director as well,
Well, we might be able to get 2 for
well, so,
He does need to have that background.
Yes, he does.
just making my position on the budget, and I think we can, I still don't like raising the taxes as much as it
Trying to get there.
is, even though it's not raising much compared to when I got on the board, overall with the cost.
So what's next you need from us?
Nothing, I think I have the direction I can move forward.
Hang on, got doesn't tell me anything.
So what my understanding is we're gonna keep the 4.8. We are not going to levy for the fire truck dollar amount that we missed this year. Instead, we are going to put it into contingency and put Ellers on the put the 16,000 for Ellers in the accounting line.
So do you need approval to move forward and to post a public hearing and that kind of stuff? or-
Nope, I just take this and tomorrow I will update my information and I will put up the public hearing information by the end of the week, and your public hearing will be on the 25th with the board meeting. And I'll move forward with getting everything else together and I'll send it out when I'm done.
All right. And you're gonna come back for the public hearing, right?
Well, she can't come back if she never leaves.
Anything else then? So that clears it up for me, so now I just wanna make sure we do what we're doing.
Yeah.
So I don't want it to last, but have another special meeting so we can talk about more line items. So, go ahead, Kevin.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second. Any motion, I made second to adjourn. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're adjourned.